Cool. And we are back at livecoding.ca. My name is Nick Taylor. I'm a staff software engineer at Netlify. And I'm joined today with my awesome old coworker, Christina Gorton, who I tried very hard not to introduce as my co-host because we used to stream together. How you doing,
Yeah,
Christina?
good. That's why we're both laughing because we knew we'd
Yeah.
probably just say something like, I'm blah, blah, blah from. No, we're not. Hi, I'm Christina Gorton. I work at Scarf. I am a developer relations manager in open source.
Cool, cool,
I'm
cool.
good,
Yeah.
Nick. How are you?
I'm doing good, Yeah, it's been a minute since we last spoke, but yeah, no, things are going well over at Netlify and having a lot of fun there. So yeah, no, it's going super well. So we're gonna talk about a few things today. So I thought we could talk. I feel like DevRel has been talked about a lot, but honestly, people still always ask about it. It's like I think
I
every
think it
week I hear
works to
somebody asking.
talk with me about DevRel because my DevRel seems to be a bit different than other people's DevRel and what they do and what people expect from DevRel. So we could totally talk
Okay,
about that too. Like I tend to do the roles I've been in, the last two roles as a DevRel have been a little bit different than I think what most people into DevRel for.
okay. So
Yeah.
yeah, I guess yeah. Let's kind of start there. So um, oh, sorry, Anthony's in the chat. He had a Twitter space, but it's I think he's saying it's tomorrow now. Or oh no, he just had his schedule wrong. Anyways, hey, how you doing, Anthony?
Uh,
Um,
Hi,
yeah.
Anthony.
So yeah, I guess what would you consider DevRel? Because like whenever I've listened in on Twitter Spaces, or we've even talked with some folks in the
Mhm,
past, like Patchy and Aisha, um,
mhm.
I feel like it's an evolving role, and it also depends like whether you're tied
Yeah.
to engineering or marketing as well. So I
Yep.
guess I guess yeah, go ahead and tell us how you what you consider DevRel at this moment. I guess.
Yeah, well, I think DevRel is a bunch of things, and that's okay too. I think DevRel is like not super defined, but I think that's something that people need to be aware of when they're interviewing for it. Like you said, you might be under engineering, you might be under marketing, you might be under product, you might be under customer success. Like it depends on the company that you're
Yeah.
applying for, and you might not know. Oh, usually you'll see it like up like on like when you look at an ad for a job, you'll see that they'll say under marketing or under engineering or something like that, but not always. You don't
Okay.
always know. And some companies don't know. A lot of companies want their first DevRel and they don't know what they want. I think I'd found going into like a lot of interviews before when I was interviewing before I got to Scarf that a lot of companies didn't know what they wanted out of DevRel. And you'll get this like
Okay.
huge list of stuff that's like, we want a DevRel to do this, 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 this. And when you actually talk to
Okay.
them, you're like, I've said to them, this is really like three or four different roles. Like this is a
Yeah.
content developer, this is or like a technical writer, this is someone who's doing community, this is someone who's working mostly with product and just advocating for people and telling. So a lot of people want DevRel to be everything, and
Yeah.
that's why a lot of people in DevRel burn out. So I think you should be like
Yeah.
really aware of that and
Yeah.
upfront about it when you're interviewing. Is just saying like, what is actually like the priority here? What do you need?
Yeah.
From a dev role when you're coming in, and that's something I did a lot when I was looking at roles this time around, was just okay,
Okay.
what do you actually want a dev role for? What does that mean? And it depends on the companies, because if you're at an early startup, you might be doing a little bit of everything. If you're at a bigger
Yeah.
company and you're a dev role, you might be very specific because they have a bunch of dev roles doing a bunch of different things, and you're very niche and something specific. So
Yeah.
it's really really dependent on where you're at and what you're doing. Right now I'm doing a lot of what I think a lot of developers kind of cringe at sometimes, but really developer
Okay.
advocacy is a lot of it's marketing. It's just a different kind of
Okay.
marketing. You don't just like go out and do, I think, the traditional kind of marketing techniques, but
Yeah.
a lot of DevRel is marketing in that sense. And so I'm doing a lot of that. I'm doing a lot of content still, and I'm doing a lot of
Hmm.
working one-on-one with like open source projects and maintainers. So
Okay. Yeah. No, that's cool. And I mean, you are a content. I think I think you're great in this space because like you've been a content creator for a while now. Like for folks that don't know, like Christina's got like LinkedIn courses on like CSS animations and using stuff like Green Sock and so on. I know you've done a ton of documentation for Andrew Brown's company is escaping me right now. I think Exam Pro, but there was another thing. There was another company you did. I forget which though.
Yeah, when I was I worked contract for Exam Pro and DigitalOcean at the same time, and DigitalOcean had acquired a bunch of like really popular blogs, and we took those blogs and basically rewrote them because DigitalOcean has a very specific style and how they want things. And
okay.
So, yeah.
Okay, gotcha. Yeah. And no, I like what you're saying too about like, obviously it can get overwhelming. Like you were saying when you were interviewing at some of the places, they're like, hi, we'd like you to do 5 jobs, but pay you for maybe one of them. And it's kind of funny because I was talking to Phil Hawksworth, who I work with at Netlify. I had a coffee chat with him a few hours ago, and because I was just because my team I'm not on the DX part of the org, but what we do, because I work on the frameworks team and ecosystem, it definitely affects stuff they're doing because they're rolling out demos or just trying out stuff. But he was breaking it down like you were saying before. Like we have, like when Netlify was a lot smaller, the DX team I think was doing a lot of all those things that you said, but now there's like some clear separation. You know, don't quote me on it, but like you were saying, like there's the DX engineering, you know, which are people that you're probably aware of, like Ben Hong or like Brittany Postma, and but then there's like a documentation team now. There's like we have people working on templates, so it's like. It's just a ton of stuff, but like getting back to what you're saying about a smaller company, I don't think it's so much a DevRel thing. It's just a small company thing. Cause like I've worked at small startups as well. And I got hired at one place as a front end engineer, but I always say this, people are probably sick of me saying it, but I ended up also deploying things to Kubernetes cause they needed somebody to do it, you know? So I think it's kind of understandable potentially in a smaller company, but you definitely.
I think it's understandable, but I think what I've learned and what I started doing, and I think I am in a position where I can do this. I know not everyone can, but I've been able to do this. Is when I go in somewhere now, I set clear boundaries because I know if I try to do everything, I won't do anything well. And so it's more coming in and focusing on like, let's figure out where you are right now. So like I'm at Scarf and we are a small company. And when I came in originally, I was very much going to like help them a lot with community stuff, but they weren't even at the point yet where they had much of a community. People didn't know what Scarf was, and so that's not where I put my focus when I first came in. And I told them that initially. I was just like, listen, this is the work I want to do, but we can't get there yet until we do this stuff, and that's where we've been able to focus. And I think you have to be willing to do that. And you can't always, especially if you're coming in like as a new developer advocate, I've talked to a lot of newer developer advocates. It's really hard to like feel like you have a say in what you can do, but those people burn out quicker, or they just like, they end up finding a different job or getting out of DevRel altogether, because it's really hard to do any good work if you don't have an area where you can focus. Like with anything, engineering, anything you're doing, if you don't have an area where you can focus, it's hard to do good work.
Yeah, no, for sure. And I remember this clearly when I was younger in my career, because you know when you're somebody new, you're just like, yeah, I can do that, and
I'll
then
do everything.
yeah, exactly. And then next thing you know, it's like, okay, yeah, I haven't shipped anything, but I've got 10% of 20 things done. So can definitely feel it. Yeah, it ties into like the theme of being able to say no, I think, you know, and not in a bad way, you know, it's just like, I can't do this now, but we can, you know, if we prioritize things, I'll get to it at some point, you know? So, yeah, so cool.
Yeah,
cool.
I think it's been important to learn that that saying no to things, or I think I learned this a lot in the community side. So when I was doing a lot more community, like say when we were at Forum, doing a lot of community stuff, saying no to, especially when we had like lots of issues and PRs and things, saying no isn't like a mean thing. It's not a bad thing. A lot of times it's a good thing, but you can always frame things in a way so people can understand. And I think the same thing works when you're working with your coworkers or a boss or something. Is it's not that like you're going to just say, no, I'm not going to do this. You frame it in a way that's like, this is not going to be the most beneficial thing we can do. This is, and this is why. Like having to be able to communicate that stuff is really important.
Yeah, for sure. The classic, like, everything's a priority means nothing's a priority. So it's like, that's another thing I've learned too. Okay, cool. Thanks, Toma. Yeah, I was just doing a quick sound check because I think it's just my headphones with part of my setup. I think that's just giving me a little weird noise in the back, but just wanted to make sure. But yeah, no, I've seen this happen before where it's like somebody's asked me like, we need these 3 things for this sprint, and I'm like, I can't, and not I can't again. Like I'm not gonna do it. It's just like if you want 2 things, I can do 2 things well this sprint, and then we can tackle the next thing. And then as soon as you put it back to people, it's not funny, but it's you see how quickly they prioritize, where they go, you know what, that thing I said that was super critical, actually I don't really care anymore, you know. It's like I really need this, so
I need this thing. And I think it teaches you to make good. So it helps you when you're at like a place, and I think DevRels especially need to know this. Like you always need to know like the businesses like goals, what they need and stuff like that, along with other developers, right? So you're balancing the needs of like in DevRel, you're balancing the needs of the company and then the needs of developers, and you're having to balance those 2 things. So being able to communicate like those important things of like exactly like you said, I can do these things, I can do all this stuff. None of it's going to be good. I can prioritize these things, and this is what will be good, and then we can focus on that other stuff afterwards. Can be really, really important to do. Like I have to do that still some weeks. Some weeks I'm like, I could cold email all these people that you want, or I can create these like 2 or 3 pieces of content. What's going to be the most bang for the buck? What's going to be the best thing? And, you know, having those conversations and doing that kind of stuff is really important.
Yeah, no, totally agree. I'm just trying to. I'm pretty sarcastic sometimes, so I can picture myself in an alternate universe saying, "Yeah, I can ship 3 things really crappily for the sprint if you'd like. Sure, no problem." I definitely wouldn't say that, but that's that
also depends on the dynamic of whoever is your like boss or teammates or whatever. You and I probably could have done that to each other.
Context and the people definitely matter. Anthony's saying I can ship plenty of bugs. That's cool, right? Exactly. Well, how else that's how you retain job security, right? You know, like can't fix things if I don't create bugs. So so cool. So you obviously work at Scarf, like you mentioned, and you were talking a bit about some of the stuff going on there, but I know I personally don't really know what Scarf is. I caught one of your Twitch streams with I think it was with
is it with Tanner?
Tanner Lindsley, the React Query one. I caught that, but it was a good interview, but it was more talking about React Query and stuff he's working on. So I'm kind of curious what Scarf is, or maybe even how it came to exist.
I mean, Avi is our CEO, and he's the reason it exists. He's someone who was in open source, and he was an engineer just creating things that he needed, especially at his job. And then he found that the thing, which has become Scarf, which we can talk about more in a second, was very useful for him, for his team. It became something that was useful to other people too. And so he turned it into a business. And I think some people are, especially in DevRel space, are more familiar with something like Orbit. So Orbit, orbit.love is like, it's really for like community type stuff. So you can know, like, if I have an open source project and I hook it up to Orbit, which I did when I was at Forum, that's something that I did. I could keep track of a lot of things. Like I could see when people were commenting, creating issues, creating PRs. I could get some general information about our community, which was great.
Okay.
And it's really useful. But Scarf goes deeper than that. So it's all about data analytics. So if you have some kind of project, especially on something like Docker, where you have a package that people are downloading, Docker has a lot of information when someone downloads your package, but they don't give that information to anyone. They don't give that information to the maintainers or anyone like that. But with Scarf, if you have Scarf, basically you have Scarf kind of behind whatever pools you're doing for Docker or other packages. It's not just Docker, but that's probably the more popular one that we have. You get a lot of data. You get a lot more data, a lot more information. And this data and information can really help maintainers or FOSS, companies and general cost companies. With a lot of stuff. Like, actually, I just did a case study for one of the people that were using us called Nestybox, because they were acquired by Docker. And they were acquired by Docker in part because they got a lot of information from Scarf. They were able to say, like, hey, these are the companies using our package. These are this is how many people are downloading our stuff. This is where they're at in the world. These are the systems and things that they're using when they're downloading. Like, it was a bunch of information that they wouldn't have had otherwise that they were able to use. And that's what we're really about. We're helping a lot of like these open source, like Tanner, who we had on. Tanner has a bunch of open source projects, and he gets a lot of sponsors. And one way that really helps get sponsors is he now knows who is using his stuff, right? He can a lot of times that people are using your project, but you don't know who. You don't have the information of like who, what companies, especially like big companies, are using your projects. Sometimes they might want to sponsor you, sometimes they don't. But if you know, then you can actually like reach out, and that's what a lot of people who use Scarf, a lot of the companies, smaller companies or open source projects or even bigger companies will do with that data. So it helps them just like have information that really maintainers should have. And it's not just to get sponsors or just to monetize. It can be for other things like security purposes. If you know that you have a vulnerability that you fixed, but you don't know who's using your stuff, then it's hard to tell people like, hey, there was a vulnerability. You need to, like, we fixed it. Make sure you have the latest here. When you have the data from Scarf, then you have that, and you can actually let people know proactively. So it's just stuff like that.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Yeah, no, I've got the Scarf website up here, so I'm just on the about page. I was kind of, people probably saw in the stream, I was Googling Tanner Scarf, and I was not getting the Twitch interview. I was getting scarves. There's apparently Tanner scarves that exist. So
if you put in Scarf, you'll probably get a lot of scarves. So Scarf is going through a UI redesign right now too, so it will look different than this pretty soon. They badly need it, and they are getting it. We have a wonderful designer who is doing a lot of this right now. But as for right now, it is usable. It's great. You can use it. But Avi, there's Avi, our CEO. He is. He has there's a lot of not blogs, but a lot of podcasts and different things with Avi talking about kind of the history of Scarf. If you like, just Google him, you'll get a lot of information on that too. But we're Scarf. That's what we do. We do a lot of just giving maintainers, giving open source projects in general, just kind of more data that they need that has been hidden from them, and that they can use for all kinds of things, whether it be monetizing, making their like projects more sustainable, or it be other things like I talked about, like with security, or just knowing their community better. We've had like some companies that their community managers, like I was open source community manager for a while, their community managers use Scarf just because it helps them have better insights and understanding. They can know like how many people are using Linux or Mac or Windows. Should we change our documentation based on that? Like just different things like that. They can get the information about when using Scarf.
Okay, that's cool. And I definitely see the community aspect. I mean, we both were working on community software before and open source, and it's really important to be in touch with your community, like you said. I'm curious how, like, don't necessarily need to know all the like details about it from an engineering standpoint, but like I imagine for stuff that's on GitHub, they're probably using the API to pull in some information and like, but like
GitHub's hard. So
okay,
some of the information that you can get, GitHub does have a ton of information, but the GitHub like blocks a lot of stuff. So we have Scarf Gateway, which is kind of thing I was talking about, where either you can have like your Docker package or you can have other files packages. It doesn't have to just be Docker.
okay,
We have native Python support and stuff like that now too. But we also have something called Pixel documentation pixels. So like for your documentation that you might have, you can put a pixel behind it that tracks like where people have been on your documentation and things. But it doesn't work well on GitHub, which is very frustrating. So it will work like on your documentation websites or things like that, but like not great on your READMEs. And it's because of I don't know all the technical details behind why. Avi actually has a lot more information on that, but like why we can't, but GitHub basically makes it very, very hard for us to use it.
Yeah. And I guess there's probably, I mean, this isn't a Scarf issue. This is like in general with folks who like I use ad blockers and stuff to, you know, so there's probably a portion of people where you might not discover them because of that, but you know, probably not the end of the world, you know, like you know, there's a lot of folks that do these kinds of things, and then not for bad purposes. I mean, there's obviously people that do it for bad purposes, but it's a pretty normal thing, analytics and stuff. So, okay, no, that's cool.
Yeah, there's actually like a history behind Scarf, where Scarf was originally they were actually really popular in the React community for a long time. Tanner was one of their first
oh, no way.
users, but they were really, really popular in the React community. Scarf, the original Scarf, which is different than what Scarf is now, and it was behind like NPM. I don't know the whole story behind it, but the way that it was added to these projects, a lot of people in the open source community, especially React community, had a hard time with it. Like they didn't like it because it was kind of like something they didn't know that like, what is this Scarf thing? Why is it like tracking me type of thing? And Avi and our other like co-founder, Tim, took a lot of that like feedback and talked to the community. It was like, what would you be okay with? Like, you know, this, you know, the way we have it right now is not what you like. What would you be okay with? And they got that feedback, and that's what became Scarf Gateway. And people have been okay with like that kind of like sitting behind like these Docker pools and things like that. People don't have a problem with, because most people want maintainers to have good information about like their projects and stuff. People want to support like the open source community when they can. There was just like, and I don't have the full history of like what it was exactly, but the way that they were getting the data before, the community was not happy about, and now they are.
They were using the tears of children to pull the analytics or something. You know, for sure. But it's, like from what I've seen, because I've been working in open source for a while now, people are sponsoring folks. People really want projects to do well, so they're usually on board to give folks a hand with that. In terms of the product itself, like I imagine you have small and big clients. Like, is there, I guess like we don't need to go into like exact pricing, but I'm curious, like if I'm just an OSS maintainer, I'm like, I've got a few projects, you know, I'm not like necessarily making money from them, but like I'm just kind of starting off. Is Scarf something I could incorporate on like some kind of OSS tier or?
So Scarf itself, the product Scarf Gateway is free. So if you look at like our product, Scarf Gateway is free. The only thing right now where they have like kind of the professional plan is other stuff that you can get. So if you want like more control over the, say like the data that you're getting, like the timeline of like the data, or we have lead gen services. So because we have such good data, we can help people figure out like who they should get in contact with and stuff like that. And we'll do that for them. But those are like the professional plan. The actual just Scarf Gateway, anyone can use it. Anyone who has like an open source project can put it behind their project. And we do have a lot of very small like projects who just want some more data and stuff like that and more information. And they I mean, that's the majority of our people. Most people aren't on like the professional plan anyway. They're most people are
Yeah.
using just Scarf Gateway, which is free to use. The pixels and all
Okay.
that's all free to use. Yep.
Okay, yeah, gotcha. Yeah, but that's a pretty common model though to have like free. Well, I say air quotes free, but open source, and then have a different paid model for like just more feature. No, that's
Yeah.
cool. That's just good to know. And I imagine you've set this up before. Like, we don't need to set it up right now, but I'm curious. Like, what is kind of the process? So like I definitely
if you go all the way down, eventually they'll have this up at the top, I'm pretty sure, because we should have our documentation there. But go to the documentation.
Okay.
Yeah. And then the quick starts I just wrote those when I first started. So there's like the quick start, say if you're doing like Docker, so just click that one.
Okay.
And anyway, it's we tout it as, and it has been whenever we've worked with people, it takes like 5 minutes to set up, basically.
Okay, so doesn't take that long.
It doesn't take long to set up, really at all. The biggest thing is that you'll have to go through, and depending on what you're doing, is like change. You'll have to go in your documentation. So wherever, like with Docker, you have a Docker pull command. You'll have to change the command just so that it uses either the Scarf URL that we give you or your custom URL if you want a custom URL, so that it doesn't say Scarf. You can set that up too. But the documentation walks you through like how you create the packages, and they don't take very long to create. And then you go through, and we've even in the past, when we've worked with companies, we've created like a PR to change stuff, so they don't even have to like go through and change that too. So it's really easy, and if you get stuck at all, we're very helpful over in our little small Slack community that we have as well. We'll get you set up quickly if you are having problems with it. But cool. It doesn't take long for most people to set up.
Okay, cool, gotcha. I'm also curious, the project must have been around for a while now, because you were saying it was in the React community like initially, so it's, I imagine, at least a few years.
I think their Scarf Gateway was officially launched like last year, like that iteration of like Scarf, but the Scarf that was before has been around, I think, at least for like 2 or 3 years. Like Avi's been working on it and doing stuff with it for a little while now, but as Scarf is now, and what we kind of help companies use, that's been around. The Scarf Gateway, which most people find the most helpful, has been around for about a year.
Okay, cool. Okay, so it's still pretty much in its infancy to some degree. Not, and I don't mean that in a bad way.
Yep.
Cool. Yeah, Anthony's throwing community shade. He's saying he's saying why aren't you on Discord? Basically, he said Slack community, but I don't know. That's there's.
Discord, Anthony.
It depends.
I am in so many Discords, and they are always just chaos for me.
I definitely
Discord,
feel that.
I like Discord, but they already had a Slack community when I came in, so that's why we're on Slack.
Yeah, I totally feel this is like another topic we weren't planning to talk about, but I definitely feel community overload, and like, you know what I mean? Like just being part of like, there's a few communities that like I'm mainly focused in, but then like you said, there's like all these other communities like that you maybe go in occasionally, and it's like, I'm the same. I open Discord and it's like, I see all the icons and I'm like, yeah, I'm just gonna stick to these 3 or 4, and that's kind of it. Cause you could literally like not necessarily waste your day, but like you could literally spend your entire day just like either going through messages. Yeah. And you know, like some of them there's auto messages and stuff too, so like maybe you can glaze over those. But I remember when Demetrius Clark was on the stream with me, I think you had finished working at Form at this time, or maybe you were away that week. But he was talking about there's like a inbox in Discord, and you can kind of tailor it to make it a little more manageable. But I'm surprised I think the topic we got into was like, it'd be kind of neat if you could create like in the UI, like a virtual server, which is really like, I want this channel from that server, this channel from this server. And then you're only ever really looking at the stuff that you deem important. And then, you know, the other stuff, the servers are still there. So if you do need to go into them, obviously, but I think something like that would make sense. Because the same thing happens in Slack too. I mean, I'm definitely in less Slack communities now. I remember like before Discord was really popular, I was definitely in more Slack communities, but even there I was like, yeah, I'm just not going to bother logging into there. You know, it's like, I think I bought a few
I'm looking
West
right
Boston.
now. I'm in like, and this is me cutting out a bunch of Slack groups. I'm in 13 right now.
Yeah.
And then there's like 11 Discords that I'm in. And I hit like bankruptcy. Like, I declare bankruptcy. Like,
yeah, no, for sure. I totally feel it. And it's a weird feeling too, because like, I mean, I definitely have like my communities that like, I'm typically like, well, for work at Netlify, I'm in a bunch of the framework communities because you just need to be, because you just see what's going on. But aside from that, like, I'm in like the Jamstack community that Demetrius runs. I'm in OpenSauce, which is from Brian Douglas.
Yeah, Brian.
And then Virtual Coffee, which our good friend Becca, you know. But aside from that, it's like, well, and Twitter's a community, I guess, too. But you know, aside from that, it's just like I can't do any more than that. You know, it's like. If there's something
it goes back to like what we were talking about with the job, right? Like DevRel.
Yeah.
And you can't do everything, and it will be bad if you try to do all of them. And I feel like I can't be a good community member to all of these communities. Like some of them are literally like, I just go on to check one channel because it's something that like some information I need, but that's not being, so coming from like a community background, that's not being a part of a community, right? You're just like a lurker in that sense. You're not really a part of like a community, and you're not really actively building it or making it better. It's not a space for you necessarily, other than just to gobble up some information. And that's how it is with so many of these groups when you're in so many of them, versus like being able to actually give your thoughts and helpfulness to some group if you can narrow it down. But
yeah. And I mean, I think this translates to like the real world, in the sense that like physical, like going to communities, you know, like, you know, whether that's people going to like, you know, a place of religion, or like, you know, you meet up with so-and-so every month, you know, there's only so many you can really be in, you know, before it's just like you said, you're either a lurker or you're just like you're doing the drive-by, just saying, hi, I'm here, still alive, you know, and it's like, But
by the way, all you lurkers and drive-byers, you're still valid in communities. It's just it's different than being able to like give back to that community. We still need lurkers. We still need people who are just like drive-by in communities. That's okay too. But as someone who wants to be more in community and feel like he's important and stuff, I feel like when I'm in all of these communities, then I can't really give back. And I love a lot of these communities. Some of them that I've been invited to are different things, whether it be like in-person stuff or be on Discord or Slack or wherever. I just know that like I can't give you and I both have kids. We have other things happening too in our lives. Like we just can't give all of that over to everything. So
yeah, and it's I'm definitely a lurker in some communities, and you know, I've even said before, like once I start to pipe up in a community, I'm like, hey, sorry, I've been lurking for a while, just I'm saying hi for real now, you know, but you know, because
apologetic, I'm sorry.
But there's still value, because a lot of these communities they're putting a lot of great information, like whatever the community is about, you know, like. So it's still helpful in that sense, but it's but like once you become a community member, you kind of want to be a good community member, in the sense that you shouldn't be always like take, you know, like which I don't see that often, honestly, in the communities I'm in. But you know, like I don't know, it's kind of a two-way street, you know, help somebody out, somebody else helps you out, but you know, don't expect it. That's just kind of how it goes, I think. but yeah, so it's, but yeah, I definitely feel the community burnout's not the term, but yeah, just community overload and like, I don't know.
Overload.
Yeah.
Bankruptcy. Community
Overloads.
bankruptcy.
Yeah. Yeah. Slash FOMO, slash I'm sorry, slash that's all
Yeah.
I can do, but yeah.
Talking about DevRel like we were before, and how DevRel is different than for me, like that's something that I think a lot of people, when they first get into DevRel or they want to get into DevRel, they think, for a long time, DevRel was a lot of going to, and it was never just this, but what people saw it to be was, going to conferences, doing a lot of conference talks and things like that. You're always going to a conference, you're always going to a meetup, and I'm someone who's been in DevRel for several years now, and I have not gone to a single conference where I've been a speaker. So you can be in DevRel without being a speaker if you want. Not that I don't want to speak, but I'm a mom of 4 young kids, and it's not like where I'm at in my life. I didn't think I could get into DevRel. The upside of if you can think of an upside of the pandemic, that might have been it for me, was getting into DevRel during that time, because no one could go to conferences. And I think it's changed kind of the landscape of DevRel since then, because people have realized you don't have to just go speak at conferences or things like that. So just adding that in there for anyone looking into DevRel, because I've had people in the past reach out to me and be like, do I have to do this? Do I have to just like go to all these conferences? And no, you don't have to be in DevRel. There are some DevRel jobs that will want you to. I just don't take those jobs. So
And it's also the changing landscape of conferences too. Obviously the past few years, because of the great panini, everything's pretty much been virtual. So like you said, that's that's opened a lot of doors for 2 reasons. One, people that might not have been able to go speak at a conference were able to. I know I was one of those people. Like I like some people I know, they think I've been like doing speaking for a long time, but the first talk I gave aside from a 2017 meetup was when it was Dev 2, but like I gave that Hacktoberfest talk for DigitalOcean, and I was just, somebody said, do you want to do it? I was like, sure. And like I was like, okay, well, hopefully it goes well. And but just getting those opportunities, like even like last week I was speaking at a Applitools Netlify conference, but it was virtual. And so there's the speaker side of it, but also just folks who might never have been able to get to any of these conferences
get to go.
But I think, and I definitely don't organize conferences, but I know it's a tough nut to crack, because you want to make a great virtual conference experience. Like I think when that kind of started happening, I think a lot of people were just like, okay, start the webcams and just just go with it. But it's a lot more than that. And I think now that there's, dare I say, some kind of light at the end of the tunnel of the great panini, maybe, like there's obviously more in-person conferences again now. And so I think hybrid is probably here to stay, because or at least for a bunch of them, and it's just a question of, getting that really done really well. And I think some folks have definitely got that nailed down now, but it is tough for sure. Like I remember one experience I found that was really good was, I ended up going to like a CSS London conference virtually, obviously, but they had their talks, and then they had this, I forget the name of the software. Somebody's probably going to know it. And hey, how's it going, Ben? Somebody's going to know what the software is, but it had like, it almost looked like a video game with tables, and you could sit beside people, and then you could start your webcam, and you didn't have to, but if you wanted to chat with people, and it's like, I got to talk to, I've never met him in real life, but Oliver Turner, who runs CSS London, and I forget where he works now, but I just had that opportunity to talk to him, and it was a great experience the way that software was running the virtual conference. So it's it's but yeah, it's well, I think in general it's not easy to run a conference, and making it work in a virtual context is probably even more difficult. But So
Yeah.
hat tip.
And all this to say, not to hate on conferences at all. I got to go with my first tech job. The company would pay for us to go to like conferences. There's no other way I could have gone, but I went to like two different conferences, and they were wonderful. And I had a great time. But I think from those experiences, I did realize like this is very hard for most people to get to, and most people to have that information. And I think that's why I've always like created content that can go to a wider audience. Like for me, not that like talks aren't amazing and people do a wonderful job with them, and a lot of them get to go online afterwards and stuff, and you can watch them later. But that was one of the areas that I just decided, okay, I'm going to focus in on creating content, whether it be like webinars online or courses or content in blog form and stuff like that, that can go to a wider audience. Because when I first got into tech, I was in these groups that were like a lot of moms or a lot of, you know, families or just different people who couldn't go to conferences. And so being able to give them content that they could have was really important to me. But I love conferences. I have not been I've spoke at virtual conferences. I have not spoke at like a virtual conference. And so just want to say to people, you can DevRel without having to speak at conferences. There's other ways to create content for people, and a lot of companies are cool with that. Some companies do want you to be like traveling a good amount of time. So just something to keep in mind when you're getting into DevRel.
Having said all that, I really do want to go to an in-person conference, because like I think I've been to like one maybe, and it was years ago. Like there was two. I worked in Barcelona one summer at this fintech startup, and they were sponsoring a conference. So I was just basically the air quote, one of the booth boys, as they call it, I guess. But, you know, so I wasn't really attending the conference, but and then I went to one in New Orleans. This is when I was working in .NET, but it was like, okay, I mean, I don't work in .NET anymore now. So like, I'm really excited to. I
went to a .NET one, and I never worked in .NET, but I went to some random .NET conference because the company I worked for worked with .NET. I was just like, I was there and I didn't understand anything, but it was fun.
Yeah, you're like, C#, that's awesome. C#, good stuff. High five. I'd really love to. Well, I think it'd be great to give a talk at a conference, like in person. But I definitely want to attend one of the front end conferences at some point. Like, there's like Render ATL. They did it for a second year this year, and that just looked like an amazing conference. I'd love to get to that.
That one just looks fun.
But there was, I think that one was like just like. From what I could tell from like just photos and all the FOMO tweets, it looks like they kind of set the bar pretty high of what makes a really great conference. But I know Netlify's got the Jamstack conference I think it's in San Francisco in November. It'd be kind of cool to maybe make it there, but you know, all depends. So, but that's. If I can make it to at least one before I die, a JS conference, I'll be happy, I think. So I don't know if that's a great goal.
That was really fun.
Okay.
Yeah, I went to VueConf and I went to CSS Conf, which isn't around anymore, but that was a fantastic conference when it was around. CSS Conf was really fun. I went to VueConf. Both of these happened to be in New Orleans, but different years. So I went to New Orleans twice. Fun place to have a conference, New Orleans.
For sure. I feel like we've turned the stream into just Nick and Christina just hanging out now, which is I'm totally okay with too. Yeah. No, it's making me think of some of the past streams we had.
Reel me in.
Yeah.
Specific.
Yeah, we're really good at going on tangents. Including, I still remember, I think it was one of our first streams we did together where you're like, sorry, I got to go for 5 minutes. Because Christina lives in Costa Rica, for folks that don't know. She's like, yeah, I just got to go outside for 5 minutes. There's a sloth on my driveway. So it's like, I'm like, no, that's a legit answer to say I'll be back in a few minutes. So, but there's been a few interesting.
The other day, just sloth sightings. The other day I went down my driveway and there's a sloth hanging out in the tree, and right next to him was a little toucan. And I was like, this is just like the perfect, like if a tourist was here,
Yeah.
they would be so excited because there's just a toucan and a sloth hanging out down my driveway.
Yeah, you can't
It's
really
so
say that
weird.
too often. It's like,
Yeah.
yeah, sorry, I gotta go. There's a toucan and a sloth, and probably
Yeah.
crocodiles or whatever else. But yeah, no, for sure. But yeah, anyways, in terms of, I'm gonna attempt to wrangle us back in here. It might not work, but
Go
so
for it.
in terms of Scarf, so it is an open source product, like you were saying, right? So you can grab that feature.
Yeah, so go ahead.
Is that? Oh yeah, no. Is that? I think
There's
you
like a
have
motorcycle or
chains.
something if you can hear
Yeah.
it.
I was gonna say it's
Yeah.
either that or you have a chainsaw massacre going on. I wasn't sure what it was, but it's all good. It's all good.
Getting attacked.
Um,
No,
yeah.
motorcycle. He just left. Someone that comes and helps with our goats. We have goats, by the way, and someone comes up and helps with our goats, and he just left on a motorcycle. So
Okay.
that was that noise.
Okay. Yeah. So I'm gonna drop a link to the Scarf org just in Twitch here.
Yeah, so Scarf Gateway itself isn't like the Scarf Gateway code, source code isn't open source right now. We do have a project that just became open
Okay.
source called Ty. We'll be doing a stream about that this month, talking about it with one
Okay.
of my coworkers who is the maintainer of it and open sourced it. But the actual
Okay.
product itself, Scarf Gateway, is free to use. Anyone can use it. The documentation pixels, that's all free to use. If you want more premium stuff, which is usually like companies, like cost companies that need more data, need more information, need more control of stuff, they usually want the professional plan. But if you just have an open source project and you're just trying to look for more information about it, feel free to use Scarf, and we're happy to set you up if you're having any problems with it at all. So.
Okay.
You'll probably end up talking to me.
Yeah. Well, that's a pretty good deal. So, yeah, no, I'm just looking at the Thai project here. So this is related to Haskell. So
yeah, most of our developers are Haskell developers. We're very much in the Haskell ecosystem, and they open source this project called Thai.
Okay. So is this related to Scarf, or is it a project that people can use that? Because it looks like, from what I read in the description here, if I scroll down again here, it's for stubbing like open API. So is this like to, I guess,
so this is something like
shell?
our team was using amongst themselves and then decided to open source. It's one of those types of things they were using while developing Scarf and stuff like that, and decided to open source it because they found it as a useful tool. In the Haskell community. So,
yeah. Anthony's saying Haskell's on his bucket list to learn. It's I didn't work with it, but when I worked at an AI startup, and they were using Haskell. And is there one of the researchers, or I think he built his own programming language based off it. I can't remember, but I found it's functional programming, but like from the code I've seen, it's like really terse. Like it's almost kind of like if somebody threw up a bag of symbols or something, and it's like, there you go. I'm saying that without having ever done any Haskell, but I do know it's definitely popular in the functional programming community. But it's okay. So that's kind of cool that they've been open sourcing stuff that they've been using internally as well. Okay, cool. All right, cool.
Yeah.
Okay, and we're getting close to time here. The stream's a little shorter today, only not because I don't want to talk to Christina all day, but I need to pick up my daughter.
I got it, Nick.
Yeah, I know. I still feel bad though. But yeah, you mentioned you've got the YouTube channel for Scarf, in terms where you're typically interviewing folks in the open source space, or is it all kinds of topics? Or
Yeah, so we're mainly focusing on people in the open source community. So we got to talk. This one will be going live. We didn't get to live stream it because he happened to be in Italy at the time and couldn't. But the
okay,
executive director of the Open Source Initiative we talked to, named Stefano. That was a great talk. That one will be going live probably this week on our YouTube. And then we did live stream the one with Tanner, which was a really good conversation just in general about, maintainers, how to make things sustainable, and then his projects, which were all the React query, React location, which I think they've changed the name of, so it's not React specific. I think he just recently changed the name, which he talked about. But those were the ones. And then this month we'll be talking to our engineer Alex, who open source Thai, and we'll just be talking to people in the open source space. So.
Okay. No, that's cool. It's cool. Yeah. It's funny. I've never, even though I've done a ton of React, I still haven't really used React query. I feel like I'm the only person on the planet in React land that hasn't, but yeah, what you were saying, Tanner, I remember reading it somewhere. He was saying like they're making it React. It's not React specific anymore. Like you said, like I think they're starting off with Vue maybe, but I mean, it makes sense that you can kind of genericize it and you probably have some kind of little snippet to kind of make it work in React or whatever. But I know, I definitely know those tools have been pretty popular though. Like React query is definitely like, if I was doing a React project right now, if I wasn't using like a meta framework like Remix, because I've been looking at Remix a bit lately, you don't really, it's not that React query isn't good, it's just you don't need it with something like Remix, from what I've understood. But like other frameworks, it's still you need some kind of state management, but it's more than state management. I think it's like, making the network requests, caching, and I should probably try it.
If you want to look more into it, I'll plug Tanner here. His stuff is called TanStack. If you go to tanstack.com, that's where you'll see all his stuff there, and you can see all of his open source projects. But I'll plug Tanner. Cool.
Yeah, it's all good because I currently have no sponsors, so I'm in no violation of any sponsors. So go check out TanStack. There you go. So I guess we're pretty much at time, but I'm gonna drop some links where folks can give you a follow on Twitter, Polywork, and LinkedIn. Like I mentioned at the beginning, Christina's got some LinkedIn courses. I don't know, are those linked in your LinkedIn profile or?
I believe they are. Yeah.
Okay. Cool. Yeah. And Anthony's getting a little nostalgic. He's saying it's like good old times on the stream. I will admit, no, I really had a lot of fun streaming with you. Obviously we're at different places now though, so who knows, maybe we can do some team ups every now and then, but no.
Thanks for joining us, Anthony. It does make it more like old times.
Yeah. It's like, it's not the duo, it's the trio, you got to supersize. So cool. Well, I guess that's a good place to end. I'm just going to drop a link. I just got to find it. But next week, I'm going to be speaking with the creator of a new web framework called Fresh. It's built on Dino. It's using Preact. So I'm going to be hanging out with Luca. I'm just going to find that in the schedule and drop that link if folks want to check that out. Also, just feel free to check out the schedule. I've got some other great folks coming on. B. Dougie from Open Sauce is going to be joining us at some point in August. Rizal, Scarlett too from GitHub, a few other folks. So definitely looking forward to it. Thanks again, everybody, and it's awesome hanging again, Christina. Good times, old times. So we'll see you all next week. Later. Bye.